Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined alongside Shotgun Spratling and Ryan Abraham. Today, we're going to be previewing USC's matchup against the Cal Bears on Saturday, a late 7:30 p.m. start, but it'll be an interesting start indeed. We're also talking about USC's injury updates. The Trojans secondary is a little banged up this week. That's going to be something that probably you should look for going into that game. And then we're talking about the coaching matchup. It's a former coaching battle with Justin Wilcox up against Clay Helton. And then, of course, we'll be taking your questions. I believe we are trimulcasting on Facebook, YouTube Live, or Facebook Live, YouTube, and Periscope.
Looking good.
Looking good.
I got Periscope up.
Very nice. How are you guys doing today?
I'm good. Shotgun, you seem to be panting. You're breathing heavy.
I'm breathing perfectly fine.
It's almost like you just ran in here, like right as it started.
I'm here, man.
Whatever works, I guess.
Keely and I were playing some Shotgun, playing some Jeopardy on a device I'm not going to say because it would start talking right now. But that was kind of fun. We had a good time.
While we were waiting.
We did pretty good.
Yeah, good tag team. But Cal versus USC, it's an interesting matchup. It's kind of like the last real test, I guess you could say, USC has of Pac-12 matchups. If you don't include Notre Dame, maybe UCLA. I don't know. Do you think UCLA is going to be a test?
I mean, both these teams have won 2 conference games, Cal and UCLA. I mentioned on our podcast we did with Keely Eure and Dan Weber something about, they shouldn't be very tough games or something like that. And there's a guy on the Peristyle who's like, Ryan said, or he's at this point of the podcast, he didn't say they're tough. Cal's defense is legit. Like, this is a tough team. Their offense is awful. UCLA, anything could happen. I don't think any games are going to be easy for USC, especially if they play poorly. They can lose all 3. So that's just the way it is. I'm not saying these aren't tough teams. I mean, they're not good teams. Like, they've won 2 conference games. Cal's got a better record. They're 5-4. UCLA's 2-7. So it's like, I mean, you look at these teams, you're like, oh yeah, these are juggernauts. They're not juggernauts. No. But Cal does have a legit top 15 defense in the country. Top 20, you could argue. So that's where I think it's going to be tough for USC. So and obviously Notre Dame's good.
Yeah,
they're good.
Cal's
playing much better recently.
True.
In the last 3 games, they've given up 7 points, 10 points, and 19 points to Washington State's, highly regarded offense. Before that, they did give up 37 points to UCLA. They gave up 42 points to Oregon. But it's how you're playing down the stretch, and I think they're playing much better. The question is, with the quarterback situation, can they get anything going there? Chase Garbers is a guy from Corona Del Mar who's good, but probably shouldn't be thrown into a starting role yet. I think he's a redshirt freshman, so I think it's a little early in his development for him to be thrown in. But he's there with Brendan McElwain, who's a 2-sport athlete, a dual threat type of guy, but has not thrown the ball well at all. He's been a turnover waiting to happen.
Turnover machine.
So those 2 quarterbacks, they're not taking care of the ball very well. Even...
Well, one is. Chase Garbers is.
No, he's not. I mean, he threw the ball right to a Washington State defender, and they ran it back in. They fumbled it into the end zone. They fumbled it out of the end zone, and they get the ball back out of it.
And he made the tackle and forced the fumble. But that was a situation where they put in Brandon McElwain for 1st and 2nd down. It ended up being 3rd and 11, and then they put Garbers back in there. I'm not going to put that on him. The mismanagement of the quarterbacks is probably a lot of the reasons why they're turning the ball over this much.
I mean, he still threw it right to the
defender. He did throw it. And he made the tackle and forced the fumble, and then they got the ball back. So it was pretty good.
So that he should be playing safety for them, is what you're saying.
Yeah. The last 4 games, they've scored 4 offensive touchdowns. I guess they scored in the past game, but it was a throw to the defensive tackle. 4 offensive touchdowns, and the offense has given up 4 touchdowns. So they've kept it even with the defense. The defense has scored 4 touchdowns on them because of their turnover. So the Cal offense is really bad. I don't think it needs to be that bad. I like Patrick Laird a lot. Their receivers are pretty banged up, and I like the way Chase Garbers played. Ross Bowers was good. We didn't know why he wasn't playing, but I had Shannon Carroll on the podcast yesterday previewing, and apparently they revealed that he had some sort of injury. So that's probably why he played in the first game, and then he hasn't been really seen since. So they were using 3 quarterbacks at first. They've kind of cut it down to 2. My gut is they're only going to go with Chase Garbers because that play, they were tied against Washington State in the 4th quarter. And they were driving, and Chase Garbers drove them all down inside the red zone or to the red zone. And then they put McElwain in, and he threw a pick in the end zone. And that was just demoralizing to this defense that played well all day. They gave up a long scoring drive, and that's all she wrote. So my gut is they're just going to go with Chase Garbers, which to me, I think the offense will play a little bit better. But it's going to be, how does this USC offense play against a really good Cal defense?
Yeah, Helton described it yesterday as a nightmare scheme. What makes this Cal defense so hard to play against?
I think they have multiple front stuff going where different people come in from different directions, but it's, their secondary, super talented. They might be the best in the conference from some of the stuff I saw. They just play really sound football. And when you saw Justin Wilcox at USC, we'll talk about the coaching matchup. I didn't think it matched well with what USC had, because USC had athletes. They want to get after it and make plays.
Yeah.
And his defense, you have to be a little bit more disciplined, because they'll give up some yards, but they're going to make you have a sustained drive and drive the length of the field. And we know USC hasn't been very good at that. So I just think schematically they're really sound, and he's been pretty much good as a defensive coordinator everywhere except USC. I just think it didn't kind of work with the athletes. I think it's better to have an attacking scheme at USC because you've got athletes that can just get after.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do a lot of different things with the back seven. They'll do different things with the front. Like you said, they'll do 4 down front down linemen, 3 down linemen, do some different things there. But the back seven, they'll mix and match. They'll do cloud coverages. They'll do different things. A lot of things for a quarterback to kind of decipher, which does not play well to USC's strengths with a true freshman quarterback.
True.
So USC is going to be trying to deal with that. What can JT Daniels do? How is he going to do reading coverages? Which I think JT Daniels eventually will be really good at that. That's going to be a strength of his. But as a true freshman, it's a little bit different. Still learning the ropes, that type of thing. And like you said, they're a bend but don't break defense, which forces you to go on long drives, which USC is not being able to do.
Yeah.
And their biggest home run threats potentially are going to be out this game. Michael Pittman Jr. has caught several deep balls and jumping over guys and stuff. And Stephen Carr, when healthy, is a true home run threat out of the backfield. So both those guys are going to miss this game more than likely. Clay didn't rule out Pittman yet. He said he's more likely next week.
Out, yeah.
Pretty much he didn't fully rule him out. Whereas Stephen Carr, he said, was not going to play this week. So USC is going to be a couple more offensive weapons. I mean, they've been really banged up on the defensive side, but on offense they've been fairly healthy. So how do they deal with that? Can the offensive line continue to play like they did last week? They were really good last week against Oregon State. They were creating, they basically were creating a bubble around the line of scrimmage where they wanted to run. When Keely and I were watching the broadcast, you could see that almost every play the running back would be here, and there'd be this little bubble where the offensive line was creating for them to run through, and they would get 6, 7, 8 yards sometimes before anybody even got close to touching them.
It was shocking. It was shocking. Like, we hadn't seen that all season long.
No.
So to see that push was just unreal.
Yeah.
I don't think you can expect that against Cal. What you want to avoid, though, is like what we saw earlier in the season against like Stanford and stuff, where a 4-man rush was confusing enough that 6 or 7 blockers wasn't able to handle it, and one guy would come free. If that happened, I mean, it's going to be a long day for USC. So hopefully they got that stuff shored up. But I don't think you're going to see that 6 or 7 yard bubble happening anymore.
I mean, they've been much better as far as picking up different pressures and stuff like that. One of the things, the difference with the schemes of Cal versus Oregon State is Oregon State's defense tackles are mainly there to clog up space, kind of occupy blockers and stuff, rather than being more aggressive and shooting gaps and stuff like that. Whereas Cal's going to do those type of things. So it's going to be a little bit different blocking scheme, to go up against a different defensive front type of scheme to try to attack, rather than they were basically standing still. It seemed like, and you're giving you an opportunity to push them out of the way, rather than you're allowed to able to get around them and different things. Whereas Cal's going to be trying to go, they're going to be slanting, they're going to do different things that has given USC a little bit more trouble earlier in the season.
Yeah, as far as defense goes, injury wise, Helton said at the beginning of the week that Iman Marshall told him that he's going to play this game, but Helton was like, we got to do right by you. We got to do what the doctors say. So he's still TBD as of now. Jonathan Lockett has been splitting reps this week between nickel and corner. He told me yesterday that corner is a little foreign to him, but he did come into USC as a corner. But trying to train at both positions has been kind of difficult for him. He doesn't know which one he's going to be at. We also saw Elijah Griffin yesterday get some first-team reps at that cornerback spot, so you might see both Jonathan Lockett and Elijah Griffin kind of flip-flop at that position, but it's still TBD. How much with the mix and matching that USC is doing in its secondary, is it that much of a concern considering it's Cal and Cal's offense isn't too good? But what do you see with that injury situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't want to give a struggling offense some momentum, and if if you have a banged up secondary, there's potential for that. Cal's receiving core is pretty banged up. They're not real. They talked about moving Patrick Laird, the running back, out there. He's actually the second leading receiver on the team. So there's definitely some concerns there. I'm curious if we get to see if the guys are out. We saw Isaac Taylor Stewart come back to practice. You saw Chase Williams come back to practice. But does a Dominic Davis actually get some run? And do they put CJ Paul if Jonathan Lockett has to go out the corner? Do they put a J.N.A. Harris at nickel? Do they not play much nickel? Do they put C.J. Pollard as the regular starting safety? They don't seem like they trust him all that much. They want a J.N.A. there. I mean, there's mixing and matching and stuff you can do. You just don't want to be too confused out there and then allow a struggling offense to kind of make some big plays on you.
Yeah, and I think it's going to come down to who do you trust more. So at the end of the game, Jonathan Lockett bumped out to cornerback because Iman Marshall had hurt his ankle, his foot. Greg Johnson had come in. Greg Johnson actually re-injured his shoulder. I think it was the same shoulder that he had surgery on last year. He was not at practice this week for either of the practices we were allowed to go to. So
he's likely out there.
So he's likely out. You did get Elijah Griffin back. You did get ITS back. You did get Chase Williams. So it gives you some more bodies at least. Now, how comfortable do they feel putting those guys in immediately coming off these injuries? I don't know. Elijah Griffin had practiced a little bit last week too, so I think he's going to be of that group. He's the guy that's most likely to get some opportunities. I think right now they'll start out with C.J. Pollard at safety, J.N.A. at corner, at nickelback, and Jonathan Lockett on the outside. But I think the versatility of those guys, gives you the option, okay, who do we trust more? Do we trust C.J. Pollard more than Elijah Griffin? Before it was, do we trust C.J. Pollard more than Jonathan Lockett? No, let's go with the redshirt senior, and that's why J.N.A. Harris moved to safety. But I think you can move those pieces around a little bit, so it gives you some options there. And, hey, you start out the game, and you're doing really well, you stick with it. You start out the game and you're struggling, and you make the change, and you bring somebody else in. And it gives you those options, whereas at the end of that game last week, if the game would have continued or if it had been closer, it'd been a lot more attention on it. But there were no other options. Dominic Davis is the only other cornerback on the roster that was on the trip. So they had no walk-ons or anything with them on that trip. So it was basically going to be, okay, well, we can maybe use Dominic Davis, and he's not a guy that you want to throw in there. He's more of the nickel back. That's where he's played more of his time at USC. So that would have been something. It was like we'd be like, can we move a receiver out there?
Yeah.
Who has experience at cornerback if that would have happened early in the game with those two injuries rather than late in the game. So, they got some guys back though. That's the important thing is getting a couple of healthy bodies back for them.
Yeah, this is not the first matchup that Helton has had against Justin Wilcox. That actually came last season, but he was asked yesterday, what's it like coaching against people you're familiar with, Tim DeRuyter as well. Helton is familiar, and he said it doesn't really come down to coaches' tendencies. It comes down to the players. So he kind of went the safe route of it. The players will make the plays.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. But what do you think about that?
It matters. So Justin Wilcox was USC's defensive coordinator in 2015 when Clay Helton took over, when Sark went off the rails, and so they worked together. He was the interim head coach. And then they beat UCLA. He's named the permanent head coach. They get creamed by Stanford in the Pac-12 championship game, and he fires them. So he fires him and some of the other guys. And then they end up losing to Wisconsin in the Holiday Bowl, and he rehires everybody and stuff. But Peter Sermon was also on that staff. He was a linebacker coach, but wasn't fired by Clay Helton, I believe. I think he
went to Mississippi State.
Yeah, he went to Mississippi State, the defensive coordinator. Didn't do well there. I think he went to Louisville. Defensive coordinator didn't do well there, and now he's at Cal as the linebacker coach again. And then Marcus Tuiasosopo was the quarterback coach and stuff, and he's also he's at Cal now as a quarterback coach, and he's like the recruiting coordinator. I think he might be like passing game coordinator or something like that too. And then Tim DeRuyter is the defensive coordinator, and he was the head coach at Fresno State when Clay Helton beat in 2013 when they played in the Las Vegas Bowl when Clay Helton, the first time he was the interim head coach. That was the Lane Kiffin one. No, that was the Ed Orgeron, Lane Kiffin to Ed Orgeron. And then the following year, they faced each other, USC again. This was Sark, though, as the head coach, and Clay Helton was the offensive coordinator. So he's familiar with Tim DeRuyter, obviously Peter Sermon, Marcus Tuiasosopo, and Justin Wilcox. And Wilcox was fired by him. And last year, it was a 30-20 game, and Cal turned the ball over 6 times. So, it was Again, it was a kind of a bad offensive performance by Cal. So it was a feisty, game last year. I'm kind of expecting a feisty game this year too.
Sounds about right.
And
I
then,
mean, the thing is, when you look at facing off against coaches, tendencies are big in that. Can USC break some of their tendencies? Because I feel like the Cal coaching staff knows everything that USC wants to do. What Clay Helton likes to run, all that type of stuff. They've been in the offensive meetings with him, with Tuiasosopo and those guys. And Tuiasosopo has been like half the Pac-12 now.
He's been a lot.
He's
UCLA.
played at
He left
Washington.
for UCLA, yeah.
He played at Washington, UCLA,
He coached
USC.
at Washington too, yeah.
Yeah, so he's been all over the place, and so we're just waiting for him to bounce around a couple more spots, pick up Stanford, an Arizona school or something. Who knows? But they know the tendencies of USC. Can USC break out of those tendencies? I thought they did a good job this past game of doing some different things, but not just grab bag. We talked about it when we were breaking down plays that that under center look that they gave. It wasn't just, okay, well, we're going to give the ball to Vi as the fullback. That wasn't the only play they ran out of it. They got down the goal line later. They showed a two-play sequence back-to-back where they went play action. They tried to throw it to Tyler Vaughns. And then in the very next play, they gave it to Cedric Ware using Vi as a lead blocker. So it was all the same formation, but they built off of it. And that's something that we haven't seen earlier in the season. There'd be opportunities there. Like, okay, well, if you're going to use the Thor package with Brett Nealon or Justin Dedich in there, okay, what else are you going to do? No, it was the same play like 4 or 5 times.
Yep.
They didn't. There wasn't play action. There wasn't him. If you really wanted to send one of those guys out in the flat as a fullback, which would be really fun.
I would like that.
That would be cool.
Until they drop the ball.
That would make the highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
Until they drop the ball, like someone Vanuku is like, oh, we got to throw it to the fullback, and then he dropped the ball, and it's like, why did you throw the fullback ever? Those things all work in theory until they don't work. But if you got a defensive tackle, McMorris, and you throw it to him and he catches it, then it makes it really
He's got several touchdowns, I think. Yeah, he's big number 99. So watch him for Cal, especially the short yard situation. They like to throw it to him, and it's cool. The last 2 weeks, only defenders have scored for Cal.
So what are you guys thinking about this matchup? It seems like Cal's defense and USC's offense, it doesn't seem like a good matchup for USC because sustaining drives, that's not what this USC offense has been known for this season.
Yeah,
definitely not. But also, the Cal offense doesn't look good against the USC defense either.
Yeah.
So
True.
it's not like Cal's got some they run the ball really well and USC really struggles with that. No, it's just both the defenses have advantages on the offense in this game. I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you're looking at the USC offense, we just didn't get a real test last weekend because that's when the changes were made, and then it was kind of like some sort of scrimmage. It wasn't really. I mean, you saw those 6, 7. If your running backs aren't getting touched for 6 or 7 yards, you're not getting close to being touched. That's not like a real test. I mean, unless your offensive line is just completely dominating, which they were, but it was a really bad Oregon State front. You're not going to see that. So I think you just want to watch it. Want to watch how the offensive line plays because it'll be another week under Tim Drevno and another week without Neil Callaway, and another week of Clay Helton calling the plays. And does it look like, hey, when you're back, when you can just run the ball, Clay Helton said it himself, it's not that hard to call plays when every time you just hand the ball off, it's 2nd and 2, and you're like, okay, this is really easy.
When it's 3rd and 7 and you choose to run the ball and you get 6 yards to 4th and 1. When it's 3rd and 14 and you choose to run the ball and you get 17 yards in the first down. Like they did it like 3 or 4 times where it was 3rd and long, and that's something they hadn't shown at all this season. Maybe once or maybe twice where it had been 3rd and long, and that's usually like into the half. They're like, all right, we're just going to run the clock out.
Yeah.
Usually when it's 3rd and long, they're dropping back. They're looking for an explosive play with their receivers. Even throwing it over the middle, make a guy miss type of thing. No, they said, we can run the ball. And like one time they spread out in 4 wide. I think with the 3rd and 14, they spread out in 4 wides. Oregon State only had 5 guys in the box, so they trusted, like, all right, we'll take our 5 offensive linemen against your 5 guys in the box, and they ran it for 17 yards on the play.
Yeah.
So that's something you haven't seen from them. Now, I think that's much more a matchup thing. Like, okay, we can run the ball against Oregon State. Even if it's backed up, we'll try it and run the ball here. So you're not going to necessarily see the same thing from them. But it showed how much confidence they had in the offensive line to get the job done this past game. And I think that the offensive line gained confidence from that game. I talked to Toa Lobanon just a bit this week, and he said, I was like, how do you, they're a team that is bend but not break, and you guys have struggled to sustain drives. I was like, but do you feel like you have a little bit more confidence after last week? He's like, yeah, definitely. We feel like we're going in the right direction type of thing. So we'll see this week if it continues. They did some different things with the offensive line, which maybe that helps out. They did some different pen blocks and stuff. So maybe that helps them. Maybe that uses their skill sets a little bit better. Maybe that was what it was. I don't. You don't really know until you see them against a better defense than that Oregon State one.
But if you see this offensive front do some really good things against Cal, that's a great sign. Like that, then hey, what they did last week, yes, it was against Oregon State, but it definitely was in the right direction. If it's back to the way it was because now you're playing a real defense, then that's not as good of a sign. But don't discount if the USC offensive line starts pushing Cal around up front, that's a really good sign. Then that's more of a sign of this line is playing up to the potential we thought they had going into the season that we really haven't seen much at all.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go into questions, shall we? But make sure you get your questions in. We will answer them. We have a question from John.
Hey, John.
Who says, do you guys think that Stephen Carr will ever break out? He seems injury prone and doesn't look like he runs as hard as Ware and Vavae.
It's so funny when it's early in the year, why aren't they running Carr more? And it just doesn't matter. You have 3 really good running backs. I mean, my guess is there's still lingering issues from the back surgery. He just doesn't look quite as explosive as what we've seen before. Maybe it's a combination of what was going on with the offensive line too, because they haven't really run blocked well all year, and maybe it's better for a guy like Carr and Vavae, where for Ware and Vavae, the Carr needs to get some space and some things going. And the offensive line hasn't been really good at that, so I don't know. But I think the injury stuff is more. I wouldn't say he's injury prone. I think the dude had back surgery, and you have to try to recover from that.
He had back surgery, now he sprains an ankle. That's not injury prone. Almost every running back sprains an ankle. It just happens. You get rolled up on, which is what happened to him. I think Cedric Ware earlier in the season had an ankle, maybe, to go with the knee. But that just happens. We talk about it in the preseason, you're always going to have a running back go down. Your running back never stays completely healthy through the entire season. USC, I can't think of the last time they had a running back make it through the entire season healthy. The premier running back, the top running back. And I think with the offensive line, the way they haven't blocked as well throughout the season, I think you've seen the running style of Vi and Said play better against that because they can break that tackle early, whereas Stephen Carr, you get him out in space and he'll make a guy miss at the second level and he's gone because then he can accelerate out of it, and that's where you see the really big runs. Whereas he's not necessarily as good at breaking that tackle at 1 yard past the line of scrimmage or 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. He's better when he gets out a little bit further down, makes the linebacker or the safety miss, and then he has space to run.
Yeah.
Type. So I think it is partly the way the offensive line hasn't performed well that it has not played into his games. And also, like you said, it doesn't look quite as explosive as he was last year.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to watch because this is a USC offense that relies on explosive plays, and Carr and Pittman are explosive play guys, and that it just makes it a little bit tougher against a tough defense.
Yeah.
I think you got to consider Said an explosive play guy with as many big runs as he's had this season.
People gave him a lot of crap, but it's good for him. He's been doing great.
Are you trying to pat yourself on the back?
He was
always
right here, breakout player. I told you, Cedric Ware. He's a true senior. No, but he's a great kid. Everyone that's interviewed him, he's someone you want to root for. So it's great to see him doing well.
Mm-hmm. We have a question from Chris, who says, "Do you see Trayvon Sidney on the field more on Saturday?"
So Trayvon Sidney subbed in a little bit for Michael Pittman in this past game. He hadn't played the previous 2 games. He did have a catch on a screen pass. What they're going to do when Pittman's not available is they're going to move Amon-Ra St. Brown out to the outside. So he's played some outside receiver. They'll bring him in occasionally for Pittman, give him a series, occasionally for Tyler Vaughns. But I think you'll see him on the outside. You'll see Velus as the slot receiver. That's going to be the starting lineup look, and then they'll go from there. You'll see Devin Williams getting some more time. I think what he did last game is going to give him confidence and also give the offense confidence in him. They threw the ball to him short. Amazing. They try to do that.
That's what I've been telling them to do.
Yeah, you throw it to him short, finally, like I said, and once you did that, it opened things up. He gets the long catch. To start the second half, he gets a slant pass. He takes 29 yards. Shows what he can do. He made a guy miss on that play. And that one was actually a really good timing connection with him and JT. He makes his break out of the slant, and the ball's already in the air.
Yeah.
So that shows you that they're picking things up together. So I think that there's a little bit more confidence in him. So you'll see him. I would guess it's probably kind of a 60-40 split about when you see him versus when you see that. But with Amon-Ra St. Brown moving outside, that may mean more opportunities for Trayvon Sidney in the slot behind Velus. So instead of him being the third guy in that grouping, he now moves up and he's the second guy. And, I don't know how much they'll use Amon-Ra St. Brown as, with Devin Williams. I don't know. They might use that a little bit, but I think it would be more that you'll see Velus Jones and Trayvon Sidney splitting those inside opportunities.
I agree there.
We have a question from Steve who says, do you think Vivai Malapaya is underused in the offense? If so, will it be exacerbated with Sed's breakout game last week?
I mean, he had over 100 yards. I'm fine with what they do with that. Like, give them all the guys are getting some carries. I'm not having an issue with that. I don't know. People like complain about everything. Like
everyone is underused.
Yes,
everyone. Offense.
People hated said why is he playing at all? Oh wait, he's good. Okay, well that's why he's playing. And it's like, wow, Vi had a great run. What? It's like, yeah, he's good. Why isn't he in instead of Stephen Carr? It's like, oh, he had a great run. It's like they're fine. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, people complain about Amon-Ra. Like, Amon-Ra's not playing enough. Okay, when he hasn't really done much the last couple of games.
Yeah.
And it's Velus Jones. Oh, he had a breakout game. Why is he not playing? Like, it just seems every game there's someone that's not. And that's part of the good problem at USC. You have this many skill players. Can you get them all incorporated? That's tough. Whereas if you go to a different school where maybe they got 3 really good guys and that's it. There's a big drop off from the starters to the backups. So those guys are going to play almost every snap. And you saw that when it was Darius and Juju. USC didn't have the confidence to put a bunch of guys in there. This staff has made it more an effort to get those young guys some opportunities, which I like. I like seeing get Vi some carries. It doesn't have to be 10 carries each for all the running backs, but he's getting 4 or 5 carries, and you see that hard running style. And then when Stephen Carr goes down, or when Cedric Ware went down a couple times earlier this season, he can step in and he's ready to go. It's not like it's something fresh for him to try to jump into the offense. So I think getting a little bit of opportunities is great. I would like to see it on the defensive side a little bit with Levi Jones and Palier and Itiote. We'd like to see that, and I think it shows what it can do on the offensive side because those guys are ready to go. I mean, Velus Jones last year played sparingly, and then it was basically that scat back that they were using, that Percy Harvin style, using him on jet sweeps and different things. This year, I think he's taken a step forward with his game because he had some opportunities last year. John Baxter had an interesting line when I was talking to him last week about
John Baxter. We switched gears quickly.
But I was talking to him about using the redshirt rule and how they're kind of using that to get opportunities for guys on special teams. And he said, you're really a freshman. I believe you're really a freshman until you play. He said, I don't care if it's Jack Sears, but he's a redshirt freshman. He said, I don't care if it's Elijah Winston coming in. He said, you're a freshman until you get in the actual game. So that means even if you're a redshirt junior and you haven't played, he still considers you a freshman because that game experience has changed everything.
Gotcha. Vi did fumble too. I don't think that's going to impact his carries, but he did have a fumble in that game.
I don't think it was a fumble.
Really?
No. The ball was away from his body, but it was still locked to his forearm, which tells you his grip strength there. And he was already down. The ball does not come loose until after the chainsaw ripping motion.
All right.
Speaking of chainsaws, Keely said the chainsaw was not very intimidating.
It wasn't?
No, I mean, it sounds intimidating on
Not
TV.
the turnover chainsaw, because that's awesome.
That was great. But when you actually hear the stadium chainsaw noise, it just sounds like intense gardening.
Oh, wow.
That's what I said last night.
So on third downs, they play a chainsaw noise, before third downs on defense.
Keely grew up with a lot of gardeners around,
apparently.
Servants and help and stuff. So I guess
No.
It's very Orange County of you.
We had a couple quick things on Periscope.
Sure.
From Hector. Hello, Ryan and company. Greetings from Austin, Texas. Hey, Hector. Thanks.
Hey, y'all.
Welcome. L. Yeager. What's Shotgun hiding under that hat?
We have a lot of hat questions today,
Yeah.
Shotgun.
What's your hat?
A little lettuce?
It's got some lettuce.
He has hair. People think you're bald. He's not bald. He has
No,
great
he's
head of
not.
hair, so.
Yeah.
This is an option, not a requirement.
And then a follow up to that: would a 7-5 USC get an automatic Rose Bowl invite if they win the conference? Yes, that's what you're playing for. You're playing to win the Rose Bowl? And then one other from Hector, is Connor Murphy healthy, and will he get some playing time against Cal?
He will not get any playing time against Cal. He will not get any playing time against UCLA. He will not get playing time against Notre Dame unless there's like some ridiculous spate of injuries, because he has played in 4 games so far this year. He is a redshirt candidate. They plan to play him 4 games. Now, why they used him the way they did, I mean, one of the games I think he played 1 snap on defense. Why that was using him for 1 game, I don't know. But he is basically done for this year, unless there's a bunch of injuries, and then you're going back to the burning the red shirt. Because he has played on special teams his first couple of years. This year they decided we're going to redshirt you, try to get you, work you up. But yeah, he played 10 snaps in 1 game, 1 snap, 6 snaps, 3 snaps in his 4 games. So he played 20 snaps in the season, but he's going to be done so that he can redshirt.
Shotgun's got all the data here. It's like he just pulls up the spreadsheet. Boom! It's like, oh, he played 1 play here. But it's like he's got it. So great question, and he's on it. So.
He's on it. Speaking of red shirts, Kenny says, "What the heck happened to Randall Grimes?"
So Clay Helton, I asked Clay yesterday about Randall Grimes because he has not actually been at practice the last 2 weeks. Randall Grimes, was a redshirt candidate. He had played 1 snap in the Arizona State game. Michael Pittman got hurt on the last play, so when they threw the kind of Hail Mary 4th down throw to Tyler Vaughn for a touchdown, he was in on that play randomly. So that was his 3rd game that he had played this season. He was going to be potentially used for 1 more game. But Clay said the last 2 weeks he hasn't been in practice. Clay said he's focusing on his academics, so he's going to take care of that right now. And when you're a redshirt candidate, you've already played in 3 games, that's priority. Academics is first, because if you're not eligible next year, then it doesn't matter if you redshirt this year or not. So
he played mostly special teams last year, or was that the?
He barely played last year at all. I mean,
he didn't redshirt last year.
No, he didn't redshirt because there wasn't that rule then, and it was kind of weird. They used him. Looking up my sheet, that they used him 3 games, and he played a total of 36 snaps. So it's kind of like, why are you using him? What is the use in using him at this point?
I tweeted that, and I got roasted last year for doing that. But I just didn't see the use of using him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that was going to be a developmental guy to begin with, because he played a lot of quarterback in high school because they needed him for his high school team. He's very physical. He can run fast. A big guy. Guy that you want to get. He's like basically Devin Williams is. They're in the same mold. Big, fast, strong guys, but he had to work at being a receiver because he hadn't had a ton of reps at it. So that was something. That's a guy that's like a prime redshirt candidate. He's a 3-star guy coming out. He's a developmental guy. Okay, we'll bring him in. So it seemed a little weird that they would throw him in. And sometimes it's appeasing players. Like, if someone's complaining enough, talking about, you start hearing rumblings of transfers, not to say this is Randall Grimes, but with some young players, like, why am I not playing at all? Then you throw them out there, you get them some playing time, and, you keep them appeased in that regard. Then maybe you redshirt them the next year. You got to get them in the system and got to get used to things first. But with him, it just seemed a little weird to throw him in there for 3 games when it was mostly garbage time the whole time. It wasn't like he was going in situations like Devin Williams being thrown into a mix where there's an injury. It was just kind of garbage time each of those times. But he is redshirting this year as well, and like I said, he's focusing on academics right now.
We have a question from Chris, who says, who do you give the advantage to in the head-to-head matchup of Helton versus Wilcox, offense versus defense?
Interesting. I think this is a really well-coached Cal defense. And I like the offensive coordinator, Bo Baldwin. He did great things when he was up at, I think it was Eastern Washington.
Sounds right.
But I've not been impressed with the Cal offense right now. But, I would give, schematically, I would give an edge to, the Cal defense. But I think USC has better players.
I think if you're looking at that matchup, I think it's easier for Justin Wilcox to know Clay Helton's tendencies as an offense coordinator than, I think that the way that Justin Wilcox has bounced around to different spots, so maybe he's learned some different things. And, with Tim DeRuyter on there, it's a little bit different. Whereas, Justin Wilcox has been in those meetings with Clay Helton, and now that Clay Helton takes over the play calling, he's probably said in these meetings, yeah, I really like this play, or I like this play, let's try to get that incorporated. Now you're like, okay, well, I've got mental notes on that, so these are the plays they want to try to run type of thing. This is what you wonder, Clay Helton wants to run power. And some of those tendencies are easily determined by watching tape, so it's not like it's some insider trade secrets or anything like that. So, but I think it's a little bit towards Justin Wilcox as far as that matchup. And
these are both young head coaches. Clay's got an extra year of experience. They hired their staffs completely different ways. Clay brought people that he was very familiar with. There weren't any like big names, people that were going to be head coaches or were head coaches. And Justin Wilcox said, "Hey, I'm a young head coach. I hired, a former head coach as my defensive coordinator. I hired a sitting head coach as my offensive coordinator." Like that, a lot of people don't do that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a different approach, and I think it's worked well. USC still has better players, and that's kind of a trump card a lot of times. But like Shaka said, I'd probably give a slight edge to Wilcox.
Brandon on YouTube says, what does USC's offense have to do against Cal's defense to be successful? Find matchups, scheme?
Block on the offensive line. I mean,
score points is good. That would be.
I've been harping on it all year that I think the offense is dictated by the offensive line. If the offensive line started playing better, they would play better. And this is an opportunity. They played well against Oregon State. Can you continue that trend this week? If they block up front, and you can, because the biggest thing is then USC. I didn't look at the stat, what they were getting on first down, but it was often 2nd and 5 or shorter.
Yes.
So at their worst, they were getting 3 or 4 yards on first down. So it's 2nd and 7 versus 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 12 when you're losing yardage. And when you lose that, there was a couple times when they had penalties, and it becomes 2nd and 12. That changes the complete complexion of your play calling, because now you got 12 yards rather than 7 is much different. It's 2nd and 12. You're like, we probably got to throw it here, unless you're playing Oregon State and you can run even on 3rd and 14. But you're probably going to throw it, and that changes the way you're trying to call the game, trying to go after things. So I think the biggest thing is on first down, being able to run the ball. Now, when they know you want to run the ball on first down, USC did that against Oregon State. Can they continue to do that?
Yeah, I think offensive line for sure, but scheme-wise, like the question mentioned, I think you have to do that. I'd love to see the offense look more like what we saw against Arizona State when Jack Sears was doing, where it seemed like it wasn't just calling plays; it was an offense. It was something. There was a reason why things were going in the direction they were going. So I'd like to see that a little bit more, and I think that would help JT Daniels a lot. So
Yeah, we have a question from Matt, who says, does the end of the season kind of feel like when Eddie O took over and he was just free to open things up?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
You wouldn't, because this is third year. Like this is like third. It's not like there shouldn't be a sudden change, but we've seen like a sudden change as far as.
But it's Oregon State. Like I'm.
No, but I mean a sudden change of like does the attitude change because hey, we were 4-4, everything's kind of turned to crap. So I know we've been doing the same thing for 3 years, but just throw caution to the wind and just. I think is that what maybe the question's getting at, where you're just like. It says.
Like.
I think when he took over, there was a different sense of, just like, hey, I know they lost UCLA and they lost to Notre Dame, but it just seemed like a more fun team. They had that great win against Stanford.
They had cookies.
They had cookies, which was great.
Yeah, Orgeron brought back cookies because apparently that would have been a big thing, and the offensive linemen couldn't eat sweets or anything because of their training or whatever. So he made things more fun for the team, and that's why they were so distraught when he did not get the job. I don't think it's quite the same because it's not like you brought in somebody and they're like you didn't bring in a hype man and got everybody excited. It's just you got rid of an offensive line coach and you demoted an offensive coordinator. So I think more guys aren't excited about the fact that their position coach got fired. Maybe it's a couple of them are that are backups and like, why can't I get any time? That type of thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I don't think they're still going to. Still not get any time.
Yeah, that's true. Elijah Vera Tucker got some playing time against ASU, did not get any against Oregon State on offense. But I think that's more guys it's more of a refocusing this year than opening things up.
Yeah. I don't think it's similar, but I do think there is a little bit of a unity that comes when there's a little bit of a madness or a shakeup.
Yeah.
I also think I keep hearing this theme of whatever it takes. I feel like Helton has kind of centered the team around we want to finish with a good November, no matter whatever it takes. Even to the sense of when I was walking to the media room at Oregon State, Helton had the team have a primal scream, like a yell of frustration to get it all out. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, why after this victory are you having your team kind of yell in frustration? But I think just turning the page, kind of unifying the team a little bit somehow, making a firing a unifying thing in a way. I think that is similar in a way, but also different. Yeah,
I mean, obviously you switch coaches if, when Lane Kiffin gets fired and Ed Orgeron takes over, that's a pretty big shakeup, And I think, there's a lot of stuff different. That's the one thing which kind of confuses me is that I get having a routine, But this USC team just seems to have like the same routine. It is like eating vanilla ice cream or something every day, and it's like nothing's
Nothing wrong with
changes.
that.
There's
I
no
like ice cream.
sprinkles. There's no sauce. There's just like it's like vanilla, which is vanilla ice cream is great. So if you have like a great week of practice, like for UNLV, and then you do the same, if it's the same thing every week. Like I'm pretty tired of vanilla ice cream at this point. Like I would like some sprinkles or something, and maybe this is just some sprinkles on there. Like, hey, this looks very different than the last like 2 months. And I don't think it's quite as different as at Orgeron taking over, which is completely different personality and everything. But
Yeah.
I think they needed to do a little bit of this, like switch practice days, whatever you need to do, just do something different because you're a 20-year-old kid and it's like, yep, I know what I do this, I know what I do this, I know what I do this, and it's like I guess there's some positives to having a routine, but after a while, it's just mind-numbing. I would think.
It just becomes monotonous. You
Yeah.
really enjoy food analogies. I just realized.
It's true.
I want some ice cream. I was telling Keely, yeah, I have a big sweet tooth, and I'm working out a little bit more, but I'm eating more sweets.
I mean,
So
you've had
it's good.
sushi analogies. You've had. I mean,
But like
a lot
I
of
did,
food
so
analogies.
I did like this class workout, which I haven't done these in for years, or I just haven't done much. But you go in and it's like different every time. Like if I was doing, and what I would do when I'd go to the gym, I'd do like 30 minutes on the elliptical, and I'd lift or do whatever, like same machines or whatever it was, and it's like the same thing, and it's just kind of boring. And now going to a class, I'm like, I don't know I'm doing all this weird shit. I don't know what's going on, So to me, and I'm a 47-year-old dude, so it's kind of neat for me to do something different. I'm sure the kids would like to do something different too.
Yeah.
True.
How's that for a different analogy?
I like it.
Yes.
Good job. I mean, they are doing 9-on-7 tackling when we didn't really see that, so maybe switching some things up.
They did do some different things. I mean, there's no pads in November this year. I mean,
True,
they
very
actually
true.
do have some pads on. The thing is getting guys healthy would help too, and they got a couple guys back this week. They also lost a couple more. So, and I think that for them to do better down the stretch, your problems of need, your areas of need, the offensive line, those are the ones that have to be better. And
Well,
it starts with the offensive line, and it'll go from there.
Sorry. Sudden intensity.
We got some questions over here.
for it.
Superluminal89 asks, if USC wins only one of the next 3 games, is Helton's goose cooked? Speaking of food analogies.
Are we talking about coaching stuff again? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, that
Shotgun,
one-
I thought you were the one who hated that.
That is a question of, will they get rid of a coach rather than who should replace him?
so winning 1 of 3 would mean it's a 6-6 team.
Yeah.
I think it still depends on how. Like if it's a blowout Notre Dame loss, and I think Cal's the better team between UCLA, but UCLA
Yeah.
would mean more because if you lose to Chip Kelly in his first year when they've won, they're 2-7 or whatever they would be by then. I think that would be enough pressure. I mean, we don't feel Lynn Swan, the administration. I don't think anyone really wants to make a move right now. That might force it earlier than what they would want to do.
It'll put a lot more pressure on, but I don't know that it depends on, like you
It still
said,
might
how
not be,
it
yeah.
works. I mean, and it would almost certainly have to be those 2 teams they lose to. If they lose to Cal, they beat UCLA, they lose to Notre Dame, then it probably still would be okay.
We had one USC go. He's got a few things in there, but how quickly people forget how awful Wilcox was at USC. It's not that Wilcox' team is good. Washington is just not as good as they were hyped to be. We talked about that earlier. Like Justin Wilcox, I don't think he was a very good defensive coordinator when he was at USC, but everywhere else he's been, Boise State, I mean, he's been good everywhere else.
You wonder how much input was coming from elsewhere. Was Sark telling him, hey, let's stay back or whatever? Like, the thing when we broke it down is for a while, they didn't blitz at all.
Yeah.
It was just sitting
The
coverage the
least
entire
amount
time.
of blitzes in the Power 5, yeah.
Which I don't know if they felt like, hey, our players are better than their players. Let's just sit back and let them play rather than forcing the issue, which you would think with athletes, that's what you would want to do. So that was one of the, I wonder, because I don't think that his coaching at USC necessarily followed the same trajectory as his other coaching. It seemed a little bit different there with some of the things they were doing, and they weren't successful. And maybe it's just he doesn't know how to coach with that type of athlete versus some of the other schools he's been at. Who knows if that's what it is. But he was at his worst at USC, but he's come back and played well. Talked about Washington. Washington's offense is terrible. Have they played Washington yet? I don't even know. I haven't looked at their schedule. But Washington State's offense is good.
Yeah.
And they limited them pretty good last week. I mean, this is the same offense that put up 36 against USC. So you can't say that they're not playing anyone.
Cal beat Washington.
Yeah, 12 to 10.
12 to 10. Yeah, because their offense is terrible.
They didn't have.
And they didn't have Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, they didn't have Myles Gaskin.
Which is, a huge chunk of their offense.
We also had another one. He said, using a food analogy, some media critique sushi chefs, but never made sushi or tasted sushi. We get some of this. I think he's doesn't like that when we are critical of like coaching staffs and things like that. It's like, well, have you done the media before? You're critiquing us, so I don't know. Like, if you, but no, it's like that's part of what we do. I mean, this is our job. Like, not there's people in the media who played football or coach football, and there's people that haven't. We've been around a lot. We talk to recruits, we talk to coaches, players. We've seen other coaching staffs with the same program. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. I don't claim to be some, super expert. I do the best I can with, observations we make, people we talk to, sources we get. But I don't think I should not be critical because I never was a head coach in college football before. I think that's silly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We get some of that. So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, we put ourselves out here. Just the coaches, the players, they put themselves out there. They're on TV. We put ourselves out there. We're like a little version of TV. We say what we want, and then some people hate what we say, and that's fine. But I don't think you can only are you only going to listen to a former coach? And even a guy like Coach Harvey Hyde on the podcast, they're like, he wasn't that successful of a coach. Why is he critiquing the coaching staff? I'm like, well, he wasn't. I mean, I don't know. Like people have their opinions. You see it. There's analysts all over the place, and if you like us, then you keep listening to what we say, and if you don't, you probably don't tune in.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about coaching staffs also talk about us.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Two-way street. Plus, and I think the line is when you're being fair and when you're calling things how you see it, and you're not making it personal and you're not making it something dramatic. There's a line, and we make sure we don't cross it.
Yeah, we try our best not to. It's just but we're trying to give you the most objective. Yeah, not everybody. The most. We want to give you an objective opinion. So. Not going to say, well, they suck because that would be more fun. It's just, no, it's like, if they're good, like, hey, they're good. Like I said, if this USC offense, like, pushes the Cal defense around, that's legit. Like, that means the changes they made have worked because this is a real defense. And if not, if not. So just try to call it as we see it.
We have a question from...
Yeah?
I said I ain't explaining myself.
Nice. Okay.
We have a question from Kenny who says, should Stephen Carr have redshirted this year after the 4th game? Interesting proposition.
I don't think so. That's tough to say, hey, our number 2 running back, we need to sit you down. Because then if Vi gets hurt or Sed being injured, you need to have that second. You always need to have a second running back. The fact they only have 3 guys they're counting on. So Mandy actually asked, do you think Marquis Stepp could see some time this week? I think he's an emergency guy because if you do have an injury, if you have another injury this week, and Stephen Carr has high ankle sprains. He's going to be out for multiple weeks. He might be done for the year.
Yeah.
So if Sed or Vi goes down, well, it's a similar thing. They have an ankle and they're out for 2 weeks. Okay, Marquis Stepp has to play now against UCLA, and he has to play against Notre Dame, and he has 2 games left because he's played 2 games so far. So you want to try to keep that red shirt if you can for him. You don't want to waste it. But so I don't think he'll play unless there's an injury and he's forced to play. So I think he's the emergency guy this week. And Clay Helton even said, he went to Marquis Stepp when Stephen Carr got hurt. They were up and he's like, hey, we're not going to play you. You haven't played this game, have you? Okay, we're not going to play you. Because he played a little bit of special teams last week.
How many games has he played?
He's played 2 games so far.
2 games, okay. So if you don't have to play him, don't play him.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you might need to play him later on.
Exactly. And you don't want to burn that red shirt unless you have to. And it was like 2 weeks ago against Arizona State. This is another one. It's like, why is he going in? So he played 4 snaps of special teams, which he had done early, a few weeks back, like a month ago. He played 4 snaps, but he got subbed in to play 4 snaps. It's like, why are you using, that's the guy that at a position where players get hurt a lot that you might need to use. I didn't think you should throw him in at that point, but he was on.
The previous game, the other game he played, he got some carries, right? Or got a carry. Didn't he get 1 carry?
Yeah.
A couple.
Yeah. So I get it. If you're going to play some special teams and you want to get a carry or 2, that's cool.
Yeah,
but if that's all you're going to do is the special teams,
4 snaps on special teams. It's like, why are you using that guy as a sub on special teams too, not just as not as a starter in the.
Why are you being critical? Now I want sushi. He did come back and say touche with the little fight on thing, so that's good. Yeah.
Steve says Amon-Ra St. Brown seems very feast or famine. What needs to happen to improve his consistency?
More food. I'm hungry.
You need the rest of the offense to play well, because when Amon-Ra St. Brown has really been successful early in the season, it was before teams started adjusting to him. So when
Yes.
he came on the field, you started seeing safeties over the top of him because they knew that JT Daniels wanted to go there. And also, you've got to mix up the routes. I mean, he runs a lot of the same routes on third downs. You know, a lot of those stick routes and stuff, routes that you run to the stick. You know, he did some different things. But you got to mix up what you're doing. And I think when he moves outside this week, you're going to see different things like that.
Yeah,
Teams aren't going to
should
be able
be
to,
different routes,
and
yeah.
teams aren't going to necessarily roll coverages to his side on the outside yet. Now, maybe that's something they have in mind. Like, hey, if he gets going with a couple catches early, maybe we'll change things up that way. But I think part of it is that he was the most successful thing on the USC offense early in the season. He was probably our first half offensive MVP. I think he was my first half offensive MVP on the Family Feud.
Both of ours.
So
Shameless plug.
So that leaves the teams rolling their coverage to you. When you're the best part, then teams are going to try to take you away. So the other parts have to step up. And you know, Michael Pittman was doing really well, and that opened some things up for Tyler Vaughn. Tyler Vaughn had the 3 touchdowns in different ways the last game, and that was coming off Michael Pittman having back-to-back 100-yard games. So it all leads to it, builds on each other. If the running game's really working well, then that opens up the play action. If you're throwing deep really well, that backs off the safeties so that you can run the ball. I mean, there's a lot of things in there that go hand to hand. And when USC's offense early in the season was struggling, he was the best part, and teams were trying to take it away.
And Stanford, second game, David Shaw knew. They tried to take him away right away. We've seen other teams do that. And I think you can't just let him be a third down guy. He's been really good on third down, but sometimes he's only targeted on third downs. And I think you got to mix it up and get him the ball some other situations too.
We have a question from Mike, who says, since you guys see both teams up close during game day, do you see a significant size difference between SC and their opponents?
No, I think it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because USC
should be.
recruits so well that they probably should have guys that are a bit bigger. But it seems like it's pretty even across the board. Keely, what do you think? You see it as well?
In the Pac-12, you don't really see that much of a difference. Ohio State, that I was like, whoa. That you could tell the D-line just was not a comparison. But
which also their defensive line was super talented.
Yeah.
Which shows
NFL guys, yeah.
Size usually equates in this game.
So,
We had when will USC hire a president? That's from B19 B Miller. So I said, I think on the last show, we don't know yet, but my guess is from talking to people, it might not be till like this summer. So I don't if you're expecting USC to hire a president in the next couple of weeks and I don't think there's anything going to be happening in that. And then we had a comment like saying it's USC go again. Shotgun has stepped up his game since last year. His work and analysis is insightful, breaking down plays. So
thank you very much.
Yes, I agree. I think
golf
Shotgun.
clap.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Shotgun
He loves praise.
Yeah.
Hollywood,
like Keely. Neither of you guys.
Hollywood OC says, was there anything uniquely special during this week's practice? Anything different or extra that was not the usual?
Dan seemed to be upbeat
Dan was
about
very
it.
gung-ho about
Yeah.
practice this week. People weren't happy about
People were
that.
like commenting like, "Why is this different?" But he
Yeah.
makes things up a little bit. Practice looks a little different.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think it was that much different.
Dan and I differed in that. He was pretty encouraged by what he saw. I think it's the part of the season where you're kind of just going through the motions a little bit. There's nothing really exciting that you take away from practice. Like, they really worked on this. It's kind of more of the same old, same old. I mean, the one thing that stands out to me is the short 9-on-7, but that's pretty much it.
I think we're going through the motions at practice more than the players are, because football practices get pretty repetitive when there's not big switches, and they're changing things as far as, we're looking at this as far as this game plan or whatever, but it's all the same drills to us. So there's only certain areas where we can shoot or do different things. So it gets pretty monotonous towards this part of the season, late in November. I think that it was encouraging to see the players coaching each other up. Biggie Marshall is not out there right now because of the injury. He's out there coaching up Raymond Scott. Raymond Scott was playing some nickel. With how the lack of safeties they have, they moved him to nickel and tried to see if he could play that position. He's done that before in high school, so they're giving some reps. And Biggie was really encouraging with him. He's talking him up. He was talking up some of the other cornerbacks. So I think that's an encouraging sign. I don't think that they necessarily did much different from what they've done last week. So I didn't see anything that was like, oh, that's that much different. But I was encouraged by some of the things I did see, though.
Quick shout out to Iman Marshall, Big E Marshall. Pro Football Focus put out their, I forget what the stat was. It was like
They stole their stat from me.
No, that's false.
They stole their stat from me. So I had actually told Keely and Chris about this the day before. And I was like, because I'm going to write about Biggie later this week. And I was like, yeah, he's top in the. He's actually 6th in the country. He's 2nd in a Power 5, I think, of coverage yards per play. So per play, he's given up 0.44 yards when it's a passing play when he's in coverage. 0.44 yards, which is crazy. It's a ridiculously good number. I mean, I looked up for comparison. Let me find my notes real quick.
And he tweeted like at like our buddy Rich SC, about giving up only 13 passes all year for 120 total yards. I didn't verify that stat or anything, but if that's true, like that's pretty amazing.
So Pro Football Focus has him targeted 28 times with 15 receptions for 146 yards. So
close.
2 more receptions, and those could be short yards. Short passes behind the line of scrimmage, those type of things. So among cornerbacks with at least 150 coverage snaps, he's given up a reception every 21.9 coverage snaps, which is 8th in the country, 4th in Power 5. He's only being targeted every 11.8 coverage snaps, which is 5th in the nation, 3rd in Power 5. He's given up the 0.44 yards per coverage snap, which is 6th in the nation, 2nd in Power 5. UCLA's Nate Metters, just for comparison, is one of the worst in the country. He's given up 1.86 yards per coverage snap. So he's given up nearly 2 yards for every snap that he's in coverage.
Wow.
Which is, which shows you that's kind of the discrepancy. That's, the very good versus the very bad. There's your range right there. It's kind of between, 0.25 and 2 yards is where you're going to get. So he's been really good. He actually has the 3rd highest rated run defensive grade on running backs. Of cornerbacks.
Have to be a big corner.
So, he's 3rd in the nation in that. So he is.
He just doesn't have like the huge plays, like the interceptions.
He just doesn't have the interceptions that really stand out. But he has been really good this year. His tackling has been really good. He's in the top 15 in that for cornerbacks. So he's having a great year. We talked about it coming in from spring practice and fall practice. He just seemed like a different guy. He's super focused, really paying attention, really to the details and stuff. And you see him coaching up his teammates as well, which is something he's actually done a lot, since he came out of high school with the younger guys. But it's really been noticeable this year. He's having a great overall performance.
So everyone who had hate comments last year to Big E, please direct your apologies to @Iman Marshall.
Moving to safety, he shouldn't be out there. All
right, let's do a comparison real quick.
No, okay.
One real quick. Do you want Ohio State's Denzel Ward, who's the number 1 cornerback picked, or do you want Isaiah Oliver, who's the number 1 cornerback drafted out of the Pac-12? Which would you like? Giving you guys an option.
I'll take Ward.
So Ward last year was giving up 12.8 yards per completion and 4.5 yards per attempt. Iman Marshall, 9.7 yards per completion, so 3 yards better, 5.2 yards per attempt when the ball's thrown in his direction. So that's compared to the number 1 cornerback in the drafted.
What was he picked? 4th?
6th overall by the Browns, I think.
He actually skipped the. We didn't get to see him in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
He skipped it.
Yeah.
And Ohio State still.
I thought you didn't like hypothetical shotgun.
That's not hypothetical.
It's hypothetical.
That's a comparison.
You said which one would you rather like?
I was giving you a comparison, giving you an
It
option.
doesn't matter. We'll save that for the podcast. We have a question from Bob who says, "Any chance they line up Devin Williams up at tight end and let him do post up the middle?"
No. They're not lining him up as tight end. Now maybe they'll go 4 receivers occasionally. They did a little bit more of this last pass game, but they're not going to necessarily line him up at tight end. They did put Amon-Ra St. Brown and Velus Jones in an H-back spot, which is where your tight ends often, when you have a second tight end they line up, they put them there to do some different things, which we'll break down in our film study as well, which will be out later today.
But I don't think Williams will be doing anything. He just got his first catch last year.
He just got settled in.
Let him play like 5 other positions. I think just kind of work him in there. Yeah.
We're reaching the top of the hour. If you want to get your rapid fire questions in, we will answer them. Mike has a question. He doesn't remember Wole Batiku's name, but he wants to know what happened to Wole Batiku.
That came up on YouTube as well. The thing with Wole is he had double hip surgery, so he's going to be out this season. He's not playing at all. He's a very inexperienced football player. He played, I think, 2 years of high school football before, after coming over from Nigeria, he went to, I think, Maryland first, or the D.C. area, and then moved out to Southern California. So he's very raw in that regard. There was a lot of things he was working on, but he was also likely because of the hips, he was not flexible enough to change directions, so that hampered him, trying to pass rush and do some different things. So I think when he comes back from this and gets back in shape, I think it could be really good for him. I think that you might see a different player when he comes back.
He's one of those first dudes off the bus. Like, if you want to talk about like what players are impressive looking, like he walks by, you're like, whoa, like what is that? Like he stands out among football players.
And he's super strong. He's fat. I mean, he's a great athlete. Now he just has to learn the game of football.
Yeah.
Which I think he'll be better and better as he comes back from this injury.
We have multiple questions about the cups that are sitting in front of you guys. Someone said that seems like a very small handle. People are like, do you put your finger through that?
So yeah, these are Blingware. Our buddy Gary does these, so we'll give it a little quick shot. Yeah, so it's a championship ring on the cup. So when you hold the cup, it's like you have a ring on. So that's
just don't do this motion and be like, hey guys, check out my ring and pour out your drink.
yeah, that's but they're cool. Yeah, you can go to Blingware blingware.com and tell Gary that Tunnel Vision sent you. But he's given us these and he's really nice, so we wanted to put them out here for you.
Frank wants to know what happened to Pai Young.
That's an interesting question. I think Keely and I actually talked about this last night. Why not use him a little bit? He's been like their super scout team guy. He mimics, when they have a running quarterback, he'll do that a little bit. He's been really good, giving the defense a look and stuff. Why has he not been thrown in the mix? I don't really know. That one's kind of confusing. You would think that he would be doing something. Maybe it's something off the field where he's not doing enough in the classroom or in the meeting rooms or whatever it may be, and he's not being rewarded for that. I think that's what Keely was saying last night. Don't know if that's the case at all, but that's a hypothesis there.
Hypothesis, yes. The legendary Lurch Logan says, how come SC never utilizes tight ends?
Is the legendary part of his name, or did you just add that? I wouldn't.
I didn't add that.
I just didn't know.
I don't know Logan.
We saw some tight end use against Arizona State. That was nice. Not so much last weekend. I don't know. It just, after a while, you're just like, it's just really not part of the offense because for whatever reason, it's not there.
I mean, there were plays where in Oregon State where the tight end was wide open.
Yes, the touchdown pass to Devin Williams, I believe it was. So, and I think Clay Helton said that the play was actually designed to go down the middle to Josh Fallow, who was wide open.
And if you look at Fallow, he was like, I was open.
He's wide open, and Devin Williams is covered and had never caught a deep ball before, and JT Daniels went to the covered guy. So that play was designed for him.
Perfect pass, though.
It was a perfect pass. I mean, it was a great play. It was a touchdown, but you could see it was a much easier play over the middle. Like, you've had a little bit more. But for whatever reason, it's just not, like, after a while, you're like 9 games in, you're like, yeah, just don't expect it. Like, it's not. There's
a play later in the game, it was 3rd and 4, where they end up kicking a field goal. They run a play where there are two shorter routes to tight ends, and JT Daniels decided to try to throw it deep again to Devin Williams. And, I did not like the decision to do that because he had Josh Fallow open in the flat. He could have thrown it to him, picked up the first down. You keep the clock moving on that. He could also thrown a strike. He had Eric Cromanhook about 6 or 8, 10 yards down the field. That would have picked the first down up as well. And Devin Williams could have done a little bit more with his route. We didn't really break it down because it was a bit of a long breakdown. But there's some different things he could have done with the route to help out JT on the throw. But the combination of two freshmen together didn't work out there. I would have preferred just making the easy throw down, the check down throw, pick up the first down, keep the drive going instead of throwing to a covered receiver.
So JT Daniels hates tight ends is what you're saying.
Basically. I mean, he's anti-tight end as well.
Well, it's funny. The bigger game for the tight end was when Jack Sears was the quarterback,
Sure. You never know.
We'll have to break it down, like how between Fink and Sears, how many throws to tight ends and
Matt Fink threw the touchdown to Tyler Petit.
Yeah, so
true.
Dun dun dun. Conspiracy. Usually tight ends are the quarterback's best friend. Why does JT hate tight ends? I don't know. We're just kidding. We're not saying
at 11.
There's no freshman tight ends.
Maybe, yeah.
True. Predictions. How do you think this game is going to go on Saturday?
Okay. Last 2 weeks, Cal hasn't given up more than 20 points, 10 and 19. The week before that, 7. I kind of think USC gets over that, though. I think they're going to get a couple touchdowns, like a touchdown a half and a field goal a half. And I think they're going to win close game 20-17.
20-17.
20-17.
That's a pretty good score. I was thinking 21-17, actually.
All right.
I was thinking that too.
Really? Okay. So I think the spread is like 5.5. So I never picked them to cover the spread. So it has to be closer than that. At least that's what it was.
They covered the
earlier
spread last week, right?
They did the third time this year.
Called it.
Yeah, you call it every week. And they've done
That's
it
not
3
true. That's not true at all.
Well, they covered. I think the spread might have been 17.
I called them losing against Texas. I called them losing at Stanford, I believe.
Okay, shotgun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to go 2017. What you think? 21-17?
Yeah.
What about you, Keely?
21-17. I told Shotgun last night I have a weird gut feeling that USC is going to lose this one. I don't know how much I believe in my gut.
I can see.
But
I mean,
my gut says what
wouldn't
my gut
shock me
says.
at all.
I mean,
It's
the
not-
trend with USC playing Cal at home has been they'll get up really big, and then Cal will slowly come back in the game. You're like, wait a second, is this still a game? Like, there's been, I think the last 2 or 3 times that Cal's come to the Coliseum, USC's gotten up 17 or 21 points in the game, and then suddenly it's like a 7-point game. Like, wait, is this still a game? Like the game that Miley Cyrus was at. It was like, wait, is this? Are they still playing here? I thought we were just hanging out with Miley the rest of the game. I thought this is what was going on.
I think. The turnover thing is going to be big too because this is a Cal offense that turns the ball over a lot. So
does the USC one compared to their defense getting turnovers.
Yeah.
USC's -7 in turnovers.
Turnover
Worse
margin?
than the Pac-12. Yeah.
that's pretty bad. But Cal. So if Brandon McElwain comes in, it's all bets are off because they're going to turn the ball over a couple more times. Which I'm sure he's a really nice kid, but the way they either go with him or go with Chase Garbers, the fact that they're mixing and matching middle of drives just baffles me. And it's obvious you shouldn't be doing this. So I think there'll be a turnover or two. USC will get maybe some short fields, something, maybe a big play. 4 scoring drives for USC, and they win a close one.
All right.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So, well, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Oh, we don't get to go rapid fire?
Oh, you want?
I saw Shotgun's face. I knew it was.
Do you want a rapid fire?
No. We'll
always
go.
want to.
Fine.
What do you guys think of Tyler Vaughn's? Stop worrying about his attitude and his thing. He's great. Also, who's the best running back on the team? You could go with Dominic Davis. That'd be a Michael Castillo pick there. But I'm going to go with Alka Cedric Ware this year. Stephen Carr is the best overall, and my Heisman prediction doesn't look great right now for him. Is Isaiah Langley really the best corner opposite Big Ear? Is this another instance of Pendergast being stubborn? I think he's the best of that group outside of him, but this week you're going to have everyone's all hands on deck there. Will Clancy retain his job after this season, seeing the defense hasn't really played well this season? If Clay Helton's back, Clancy will be back. What OC would be?
I don't know if that's true, but probably. I'm guessing that's most likely. But I think if Clay Helton's back, especially how they finish, there's going to be some carnage as far as assistant coaches go. But I think it would be tough to get rid of Clancy Pendergast. But we'll see.
Will Elijah Griffin start if Biggie is out? No, I think it'll be Jonathan Lockett to begin with. To think a Western Kentucky coach with no head coach experience will revive the program is laughable. Clay Helton actually did not coach at Western Kentucky. No. I don't know where that came from.
Jeff Fromm's doing a great job at Purdue.
He's doing a good job at Purdue. You've gotten rid of the offensive line coach who came from Western Kentucky, Neil Callaway. The only one left is Brian Ellis, right?
Yeah, Brian Ellis was there.
The only Western Kentucky guy left. But what's wrong with Carr? The ruptured disc in the back. No, he actually sprained his ankle. High ankle sprain, so he's likely going to be out. Are we going to have ground beef or steak after the Cal game? Preferably you get both of them in a burrito or something.
Get the hot dogs wrapped in bacon.
I don't know if there's just a bunch of food questions because of your analogies, but Hollywood OC also asked, what does the team eat after the games? They actually have Qdoba normally, so they have burrito bowls.
They got to mix that up too. It's the same dang meal every
pizza
time.
after Oregon State.
They do different.
But that's on the road. They got to do something different at home.
Not a question, but I just want to say that I can't wait for the EA and Solomon era LBU.
Yeah. We also had a few about USC needs to build off last week's performance and run the football. Yeah, I think that's the big challenge. I think they would love to do that. And then Ryan, I like Iman too, but he's not an All-American. No interceptions and too many PIs. But I think he's played really well. If he's not in this game, I think that could be a big factor because it could be something that sparks a struggling offense with not having Iman Marshall really locking down one side of the field.
And someone did point out that Denzel Ward was the 4th overall pick. You were correct.
We have to end on this comment from Jack.
Okay.
He says, I can't look at Ryan anymore without picturing the picture he posted of himself 25 years ago in his dorm at USC with his Paul Reiser mad about you hairdo.
It was pretty long. Yeah, so this is we've mentioned this
I wish
before.
we had
I should have pulled it up. Yeah, you can go to my, it's on my Instagram, I think. Or
Is it? Did you put on this stuff?
Did I put
Or Facebook?
It's on. No, it's on Facebook. Yeah, it was only on my
Okay,
Facebook
let's
page,
see if I
but
can
you
do
can.
this really quick.
Yeah, so my freshman year, this was the most proud moment in USC. Our RA at College Uni, which is now called New North, RA was kind of like, I don't say a prick, but he's kind of, I don't know, he's just kind of like full of himself and stuff.
Let me see if I can do
put
this.
it up
like,
there. Yeah, if you can. Will it
can't
show up
fully
there?
see it, but this is Ryan.
Yeah, that's my hair. So we took, and I didn't go home. We didn't have enough money to like travel for Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving weekend, there's not that many of us there at. Let me see. It looks like you can see it. There weren't that many of us there at the dorms, and my RA was gone. So what we did was, and everyone got the newspaper back then. We would just go around every floor and collect all the newspapers and pile them up in front of his door. And every few inches, we would duct tape it down to make sure it was secure. So by the time we filled up the whole door and it was duct taped to the whole wall, it was secured. So when he would come back from Thanksgiving break, it was going to take him forever just to get back into his room.
How did that go? There was no conclusion to the story on Facebook.
No, I don't remember. I think that before we took pictures and stuff. I think before he got back, I think janitors came and like might have cleaned it up.
Oh.
But we did other stuff like we popped the keyhole, not the what's the eyepiece thing? Why am I blanking on what the peephole?
Yeah.
We popped that out and like would shoot like whipped cream or something into his room. He put a towel there to block. We put like a bag of like shaving cream and stuck it under the door, the lip under the door, and we'd stomp on it. It would like squirt all over.
Wow, these
the
are
room.
good pranks.
They were
Wow.
pretty good. Yeah. Then he hung a towel to block it because there was like a little hallway, and then we like I think that's where we went to the peephole with a hook or something like
You
a
guys
hanger.
really hated your RA.
He just needed to be knocked down a few pegs, so that's what we did.
Wow.
It was good.
I was an RA, and I was the one doing the pranks to my resident. Like we took all the lobby furniture and put it in front of somebody's door before they came back. So they like had to crawl through obstacle course to get back to their room.
That's good.
I love the short shorts and the mullet. Just
I
a
don't
great
remember if those were
combo.
boxers or like 'cause
Oh.
I played volleyball and we would have really short shorts, a lot of like neon shorts back then. That was 1989, so that was my freshman year
Wow.
at USC. Yeah,
Keely
but my
wasn't
hair was like I
born.
had super mullet going
Fetus,
on.
An unborn fetus.
Yeah, Keely wasn't even born.
Yeah, that's
But it was fun.
6
So
years.
I am not working this game. It's my 25th reunion. I'm just gonna go have fun and maybe have a few adult beverages while you guys are working.
So we're gonna see some drunk tweets from Ryan
Maybe
Abraham.
some drunk tweets. Follow me on Twitter
Great.
at Inside Troy. You might see some drunk tweets.
Amazing.
Let's see.
Amazing. Alrighty. That's gonna wrap it up. Any final thoughts? Any game related final thoughts before we wrap it up?
That's probably a good
No,
one.
we've got to take care of the ball and run the ball well. If you do that, then they should be cow.
Yep.
Agreed.
Sounds good. Alrighty, we will see you guys on Sunday. Shotgun won't see you. We'll have Chris Trevino in here on Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Since USC is playing basketball,
On the
that's
lefty.
secondary sport that we don't talk about on this show.
Yeah, big game against Vanderbilt, so I'll be there for that game. Chris is gonna you can call for the bullpen and get Chris Trevino in, so you guys will still have tunnel vision. I'll be in the comments probably. Hanging
Oh, yeah,
out
get
in
with,
the
with the
comments.
earpiece in while watching the basketball game.
After the football season, we
Multitasking.
might be talking some hoops on this show. I don't know. We could.
Wow.
They're 1-0. Yeah, 21-point win after finishing game on a 34-9 run. Kevin Porter Jr., the highly touted freshman, looked really good in his first game. 15 points on 6-7 shooting. I'll have an interview with him later today or tomorrow morning as well.
Cool stuff. Alrighty. That's going to wrap it up for Tunnel Vision on a Thursday. That's Shotgun Spratling. That's Ryan Abraham. I'm Keely Eure. We will see you guys on Sunday.